Hello and welcome to this short demonstration video for the True Costs of Food database. So when you download the database onto your computer, you'll find this Excel spreadsheet with 4 sheets. First of all, just some information about the database, then the database itself, some key terms, and finally the monetization factors. So the database itself is structured as followed. Here on the left, you have first of all the product information, which has the name of the product, but also the product category and country of origin, as well as some international trade codes, which are defined in the key if you are not sure about any of those. Then coming over to the right, we have the impact data, which is divided into environmental and human impact categories. And for example, greenhouse gas emissions are given in kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of food product, while water consumption is given in cubic meters of water per kilogram of food product. Then coming over to the right, we have the monetization factors, which are divided into environmental and human impacts, and each of those are divided into the rights-based and the damage costs monetization approach, and both of those are explained fully in the manual. And these are given then in euros per kilogram of the impact. So for example, greenhouse gas emissions is given in euros per kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent. Then we have the true costs, which again are divided into environmental and human impacts and into the two different monetization approaches. And these are given then in euros per kilogram of food product. And then finally, we have the summed true costs for each of the monetization approaches, again given in euros per kilogram of food product. So there's a few different ways in which you might interact with the database. So one way would be to simply search for a certain food. So for example, I might search here for almonds and then find that we've got two different types of almonds, sweet almonds and bitter almonds, produced in various different countries. I can then come to the sum true costs and sort them via that. And then I can see that the almonds produced in Spain have the highest true costs, while those produced in France have the lowest true costs. I can then come back to each of the individual impacts, and unsurprisingly, we can see here that a relatively large proportion of the true costs comes from water consumption for almonds. And I can also come back to the actual impact data and see here, for example, that the almonds produced in Spain use just over a cubic meter of water per kilogram of almonds, while those produced in France use just over half a cubic meter. So another thing that we can do is search by product category. So if we deselect all, then I can just choose a category and see, for example, all of the dairy products. And again, I could sort these by true cost to see which has the highest or lowest true costs. Certain categories, for example, blue food, we see a lot of not applicable. And this is because it was not possible to calculate these impacts due to data unavailability at the moment. And then another way that you might want to interact with the database is to calculate the true costs of a certain recipe or menu. in which case you would just search for each of your ingredients. So for example, if I search here for carrots, and then choose which ones are relevant for me. So for example, if I'm using carrots that are produced in Germany, then I can come to the sum true costs, choose whichever monetization approach is relevant for me, multiply this number by the number of kilograms or grams of carrots required by my recipe, and then go through the rest of the ingredients and add them together to get the total true costs for that recipe or menu. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that was useful, and I hope that the database is useful in your work.